A mother never imagines being turned away from her child's home. We dream of warm embraces, of grandchildren running into our arms, of being part of the laughter inside. But instead of open doors, I was met with silence, cold rain, and a man's voice telling me I no longer belonged. The words still echo in my chest. You're not welcome here. That day, standing in the rain with a box of pastries in my trembling hands, I realized I wasn't just locked out of a house, I was being locked out of my own daughter's life. And behind that door, a secret was waiting. One I was never meant to discover. Asterisk, I'll never forget that day. It was raining, the kind of soft drizzle that soaks into your bones. I had taken the early train from my little town just to see my daughter, Clara, and her family. I carried a small box in my hands, homemade pastries, still warm, wrapped carefully, in cloth. A mother's offering, nothing more. When I reached the house, I rang the bell. Through the window, I saw movement, shadows in the hallway, laughter in the background. For a moment, I felt joy thinking they were all inside, happy, together. But then the door opened. And it wasn't Clara who greeted me. It was Marco, my son-in-law. His face was expressionless, almost cold. What are you doing here? He asked flatly. I tried to smile. I came to surprise Clara. I made her favorite pastries. It's been so long since I saw the children, but instead of welcoming me, Marco stepped outside, pulling the door behind him, and then he locked it. The sharp click of the lock echoed louder than the rain. You're not welcome here, he said, his voice low. Final dot, my heart dropped. I blinked at him, unable to believe what I'd just heard. What do you mean? I'm her mother. This is my daughter's home. Of course, I'm welcome. But he only shook his head. Clara doesn't want you here anymore. You need to leave. I laughed nervously, thinking it must be a cruel joke. But when I looked into his eyes, I saw no trace of humor. Only a cold determination that froze me where I stood. The rain picked up, running down my face, mixing with tears I didn't even realize had fallen. Please, I whispered, clutching the pastry box like it could shield me. Just let me talk to her. He leaned closer, his words like poison. She doesn't want to talk. She's happier without you interfering. Except at Tand. Stop showing up uninvited. And with that, he turned, walked back inside, and shut the door in my face. I stood there for a long time, staring at the closed door, my reflection faint in the glass. The rain soaked through my coat, the pastries grew soggy in my arms, and I realized I had been cut out of my own daughter's life. But why? What had I done so terrible that she would choose silence over me? That question haunted me, and I couldn't walk away without answers. The days after were agony. I tried calling Clara, but she didn't answer. My messages went unread. When I left voicemails, they were short, strained. Mama, I'm busy. Please don't call so much. Her voice sounded distant, almost scripted, as if someone were standing beside her. I couldn't shake the image of Marco's eyes, the way he had locked the door with such finality. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. I decided to try again. Not at the house, but at Clara's office. She worked at a small firm in the city. I waited outside at lunch hour, heart racing with fear that she would turn me away. When she finally emerged, I almost didn't recognize her. My bright, lively daughter looked pale, exhausted. Her shoulders hunched as though the weight of the world pressed down on her. Clara, I whispered. She froze, her eyes darting nervously around. Mama, what are you doing here? I needed to see you. You don't answer my calls. You don't visit. And Marco, my voice cracked. He told me I wasn't welcome. Her lips trembled. For a moment, I thought she would deny it. But instead, she lowered her gaze. It's complicated. Complicated how? I'm your mother. What could possibly be so complicated that you shut me out? Clara hesitated, then whispered so softly I almost didn't hear. Marco doesn't like me talking to you. The words sent a chill through me. What do you mean he doesn't like it? You're an adult. You don't need his permission. She shook her head quickly, glancing around again as though terrified someone might see. Please, Mama, don't make this harder. I have to go. And just like that, she walked away, leaving me with more questions than answers. For weeks, I wrestled with anger, confusion, despair. My own daughter, distancing herself. My grandchildren, growing without me. And Marco, the gatekeeper, standing between us. But the mother in me refused to surrender. I knew Clara's words carried fear. I had heard it in her voice. Something was keeping her silent. I began to watch closely, quietly. Through neighbors, I learned Marco had a temper. He liked control. He kept strict order in the household. Clara rarely went anywhere without him. Some said they heard shouting at night. One evening, I finally saw it with my own eyes. I had gone near their house, not to intrude but to feel close. Through the curtain, I saw Clara in the kitchen, shoulders tight, washing dishes. Marco stood behind her, speaking sharply. She flinched at every word, her hands trembling. And then I saw him grab her wrist, hard. I pressed my hand to my mouth to keep from crying out. The sight pierced me deeper than any rejection ever could. That was the truth. Not that I wasn't welcome, but that she wasn't free. The next time I saw Clara, I didn't plead. I didn't ask questions. I simply held her hands and whispered, "You don't have to live like this. You're not alone. I'm here, always." At first she resisted, tears welling in her eyes. But slowly, painfully, the truth came out. Marco had been isolating her for years, controlling who she saw, what she did, even how she spoke. My presence, my love, was a threat to him, because it reminded Clara of the freedom he had stolen. Day at the door, when he told me I wasn't welcome, it wasn't Clara's decision. It was his, and he made sure she believed there was no choice but to obey. But now, the chain had cracked. Together, we began to plan, quietly, carefully, and one cold morning, Clara and the children walked out of that house, leaving Marco behind. When she arrived at my doorstep, trembling but smiling through tears, I pulled her into my arms. "Welcome home," I whispered. And that's when I learned the hardest truth of all. Sometimes, when someone tells you you're not welcome here, it's not because of who you are. It's because your presence threatens the lies they've built. Marco tried to lock me out of my daughter's life. But real love can't be locked out. It waits. It endures. And when the door finally opens again, it walks right back in. They say the cruelest prison is not made of bricks and bars, but of silence. And in Clara's silence, I heard everything. Her fear, her exhaustion, her longing for freedom. But I also heard my own helplessness echoing back at me. How could I save my daughter without tearing her world apart? After she walked away from me at her office that day, I didn't sleep for nights. I kept hearing Marco's words, "You're not welcome here," and Clara's trembling voice whispering, "Marco doesn't like me talking to you." Every instinct in me screamed to confront him, to pound on that door and drag her out. But I knew I couldn't. He thrived on control, and any rash move would only tighten his grip. No, I needed to be patient. I needed Clara to know, to feel, that no matter how far he pushed me away, I was still here. So I began small. Every Friday, I sent a letter. Not long ones, not accusations, just little notes. "I'm making your favorite soup tonight. Remember how it warmed you after school on rainy days? The roses in the garden bloomed today. They always remind me of you." Sometimes I included a photo of the past Clara as a child, laughing in her red boots, flour on her cheeks after baking. I knew Marco might intercept them, but I hoped at least a few would reach her hands, her heart. Weeks passed. Some letters came back unopened, returned with a cold stamp, refused. But then one morning, tucked in my mailbox, I found an envelope addressed in Clara's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside, only one line. "Mama, I miss you." 2. I pressed that note against my chest and wept. It was enough. It was proof she was still there, still fighting inside. But Marco was not a man to leave cracks in his wall. One evening, while shopping at the local market, I caught sight of him. He stood across the square, leaning casually against a lamppost, his eyes fixed on me. No smile, no greeting, just a stare that told me he knew. He knew I hadn't given up. I forced myself to keep walking, my pulse hammering. Behind me, I could feel his gaze like a chain tightening around my neck. Later that night, Clara called me from an unknown number. Her voice was rushed, urgent. "Mama, please, stop sending letters. Marco, he's getting angry. He checks the mailbox. He reads everything. It makes things worse. Clara, is he hurting you?" My voice broke. Silence, then a whisper. "Not me. The children." The world tilted beneath me. "My grandchildren, nascent, small caught in the storm." "Clara," I whispered, trying to steady my voice. "Listen to me. You don't deserve this. They don't deserve this. You need to leave." "I can't," she choked. "He controls everything. The bank accounts, the car, even the children's school. If I try, he'll take them from me." Her fear was real. And I knew then this wasn't just about love or family. It was about survival. From that moment, I became more than a mother. I became her ally, her silent soldier. I started documenting things quietly, every returned letter, every strange stare, every whispered phone call. I spoke discreetly to a lawyer in town, one who understood situations like this. She told me the law was slow, complicated, But if Clara could find the courage to step forward, there was hope. Meanwhile, I built my own lifeline for her. I set up a hidden bank account in her name, deposited what little savings I had. I bought a prepaid phone and tucked it into a scarf. I mailed her, hoping she would find it before Marco did. For weeks, I waited for a sign. And then, one night it came. The phone rang. Not my landline, the prepaid one I had kept, linked to the twin I'd sent Clara. My heart leaped. Mama. Her voice was trembling, hushed. I found it. I have the phone. I closed my eyes, relief flooding me. Good, now listen carefully. You're not alone anymore. Whatever happens, we'll plan this together. From then on, we spoke in secret. Late at night, when Marco was asleep, she whispered into the phone, telling me about the bruises on her wrist. The way he followed her even to the grocery store. The way the children had learned to stay quiet when his temper flared. And I listened, always. I listened, because I knew that for Clara. Even speaking these words was rebellion. But rebellion has a cost. One Sunday afternoon, I received a call that chilled me to the bone. Not from Clara, but from her neighbor. She had heard shouting, glass breaking, the children crying. By the time she gathered the courage to knock, the house was silent again. I rushed there, but of course, Marco didn't let me in. He stood at the door, smirking. I told you, you're not welcome here. Behind him, I thought I heard a muffled sob. That night, Clara called again. Mama, I can't take it anymore. I need to leave. But I'm so scared. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice, though my hands shook. Then we'll do it together. No more waiting. We'll find a way out for you and for the children. And that's when the real planning began. We mapped everything carefully: the day, the hour, what to take, what to leave behind. I contacted the lawyer again, who promised to arrange emergency protection if Clara could just step through the door. But fear is a heavy chain. Every time she tried to gather courage, doubt would pull her back. What if Marco found out? What if he took the children? What if she failed? I reminded her of one truth again and again. Clara, you are stronger than you think. And love will carry you through. The night before she was meant to leave, I couldn't sleep. I paced the floor, staring at the clock, praying. I thought of the pastries that had grown soggy in my arms that first day, of the locked door, of Marco's cold voice. Tomorrow, I told myself, tomorrow the door will open again. But life rarely gives us smooth endings. And what happened the next morning changed everything. I couldn't sleep after that night. Clara's trembling hands, her whisper that Marco didn't like her speaking to MIT replayed in my mind over and over. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the fridge in my tiny kitchen. Every sound seemed louder in the silence, every thought sharper. I asked myself questions I had no answers for. How had I not noticed sooner? How had my own daughter slipped into a prison without me recognizing the bars? Was I blind? Or had Clara been too good at hiding it? The next morning, I walked through my little town, passing the bakery with its smell of fresh bread, the old fountain in the square where children once played. I remembered holding Clara's hand there when she was small, her laughter ringing like bells. She used to tell me she would never leave me. And yet, here I was left outside her life, begging for scraps of contact. But I knew now it wasn't her choice. It was Marco's. The days blurred into weeks. I kept busy with small tasks, tidying the house, baking, helping at the parish, charity shop, but my heart was never at rest. Every time the phone rang, I prayed it was Clara. Most times, it wasn't. When her name did appear on the screen, the calls were brief, rushed, as though she were reading lines from a script. Once I asked her softly, "Are you happy, my love?" There was silence. Then a strained, "Of course, Mama, don't worry about me." But I could hear the weight behind her words. One afternoon, I decided to take the train again. Not to confront Marco, but simply to see my daughter. Even if it meant catching a glimpse from afar. The city was busy, as always. Cars honking, people rushing past with umbrellas, shop windows filled with early spring displays. I found myself outside Clara's office building. I waited across the street, my heart pounding every time the glass doors opened. Finally, she appeared, walking quickly, her coat collar pulled up, her eyes fixed on the ground. I crossed the road before I could lose my courage. "Clara," I called. She froze, then looked up. The moment her eyes met mine, I saw tears welling. She glanced around nervously, as though expecting Marco to appear out of nowhere. "Mama, what are you doing here?" she whispered. "I had to see you," I said gently. I can't go on not knowing if you're all right." Her lips trembled. She shook her head, and for a second, I thought she would walk away again. But then she sighed. The kind of sigh that carries years of exhaustion. I can't talk long. That's fine, I said quickly. Just walk with me. 2 minutes, please. She hesitated, then nodded. We walked down the street, side by side, like strangers who didn't want to be noticed. My chest ached at the distance between us, though we were only inches apart. Clara, I said softly, Marco told me I wasn't welcome. But when I saw you that night, in the kitchen, when he grabbed who I knew, this isn't about me. This is about you. What has he done to you, my darling? Her steps faltered. She stopped under a street lamp, her face pale. Mama, please, she whispered, her voice breaking. Don't ask me that. It's dangerous. Dangerous. The word struck me like a blade. He hurts you, doesn't he? Her eyes filled with tears. And though she didn't say the word, the silence spoke. Louder than anything. She pressed her hand to her mouth, shaking her head. Terrified. I wanted to take her in my arms right there, shield her from everything. But instead, I forced myself to be calm. Listen to me, I said, lowering my voice. You are not alone. You don't have to stay silent. Whatever he's made you believe, he is wrong. You still have me. Clara's tears spilled over. She turned away quickly, dabbing her eyes with her sleeve. I have to go. He'll notice if I'm late. My stomach twisted. Notice, I repeated, horrified. Clara, you're an adult, not his prisoner. But she shook her head again, more desperately this time. Please, Mama, don't come to the house again. Don't call too much, it only makes him worse. Promise me. Her words pierced me, but I saw the terror in her eyes. She wasn't pushing me away, she was protecting me. Protecting herself. Protecting her children. I wanted to scream, to march, straight to Marco and tear down the walls he had built around her. But one look at my daughter's trembling hands told me that would only tighten his grip. So I nodded, though it felt like ripping my own heart in two. I promise. I whispered. Clara gave me one last look, half gratitude, half sorrow. Then she hurried away, vanishing into the crowd. I stood there long after she was gone, the city moving around me, until I realized I was crying openly, uncaring of who saw. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about her words. It only makes him worse. What kind of man punishes his wife for speaking to her mother? What kind of love demands silence, obedience, fear? It wasn't love at all. It was control. And control always had cracks. That was when I decided I wouldn't push, but I wouldn't disappear either. I would stay close, quietly, patiently, and when the moment came, when Clara was ready, I would be there to catch her. Because no matter how tightly Marco tried to lock the door, I was her mother. And no lock in the world was strong enough to keep a mother's love out. The weeks after my brief meeting with Clara were the hardest of my life. I kept my promise not to call too much, not to appear at her house uninvited. But every day felt like walking a tightrope. I wanted to respect her plea, but silence felt like complicity. I tried to live normally, going to the market, greeting neighbors, watering the plants on my small balcony, but my thoughts never left Clara. Even when I smiled politely at Mrs. Dubois, the baker's wife, or listened to Father Andre during Sunday Mass, I carried Clara's face in my heart, pale, tired, afraid. I began to notice small signs when we spoke. Her voice was always hushed, her words measured. Sometimes I could hear children in the background, my grandchildren, but she'll never let them come to the phone. Once I asked if I could speak to little Luca, and she whispered, "Not now, Mama." Her tone sharper than usual, as if Marco were in the room, listening. It hurt. God, it hurt. Then, one rainy Tuesday, I was sorting through old letters in a wooden chest when my phone buzzed. Clara's name lit up the screen. My hands shook as I answered. Mama. Her voice was trembling, and the sound of it cut straight through me. Yes, darling, I'm here. What's wrong? There was silence, then a muffled sob. I can't talk long. He's gone to the store, but I don't know when he'll be back. My heart pounded. Clara, what happened? She took a shaky breath. He read my messages. Every single one. Even the ones to you. He said I'm ungrateful, that I don't deserve this family, that he could take the children away from me if I don't obey him. Her words made my blood run cold. He threatened you with the children? Yes, she whispered. He said he could make me look unstable, like I'm not a good mother. And Mama, the worst part is, I'm starting to believe him. I pressed my hand over my mouth, fighting back tears. No, Clara, no. Don't ever believe that. You are the best mother I know. He is twisting your mind, making you doubt yourself. What men like him do? But you are strong. You've always been strong. She sniffled. I don't feel strong anymore. My chest ached. I wanted to reach through the phone and hold her, shield her from every cruel word Marco had ever spoken. Listen to me, I said firmly. If he ever touches you again, if he ever tries to hurt you or the children, you call me. Day or night. I'll be there. Do you hear me? Her breath hitched. Then she whispered, yes, Mama. And then the line went dead. I sat there for a long time, clutching the phone, listening to the rain against the window. I thought of Marco's smug face, his smooth voice as he had once told me at the door, you're not welcome here. I thought of the way Clara had flinched when he grabbed her arm, the anger that had been simmering inside me for months began to boil. Still, I forced myself to be patient. Clara wasn't ready yet, but I began to prickly. I spoke to a women's shelter in the nearby city, asking about resources. I contacted a lawyer I once worked with, asking questions about custody and protective measures. I even started putting aside a little money, knowing Clara would need it if she ever decided to leave. And then, one Sunday, I decided to visit my daughter again, not at her house, but at the park near the river, where families often strolled in the afternoon. I prayed she would come. I sat on a bench beneath the chestnut trees, watching the water ripple in the breeze. Half an hour passed, then I saw her. Clara walked slowly along the path, pushing the stroller, with Luca toddling beside her. My heart nearly burst at the sight of my grandchildren, so innocent, so unaware of the storm around them. When Clara saw me, she froze. But Luca spotted me and cried, Nona. His little arms stretched toward me, his eyes sparkling. My knees went weak. Clara looked around nervously, then allowed Luca to run to me. I scooped him into my arms, breathing in his soft hair, tears filling my eyes. Oh, my angel, I whispered. How I've missed you. Clara sat down beside me, still tense, but she didn't push me away. We can't stay long, she murmured. If Marco finds out, I know, I said. I just wanted to see you, to see them. For a few minutes, we sat in silence. I pushed the stroller gently back and forth, watching the baby sleep, while Luca climbed onto the bench beside me. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of warmth in my chest. Then Clara spoke, her voice barely audible. Mama, do you think it's possible to start over? To leave everything behind and build a new life? My heart leaped. I turned to her, gripping her hand. Yes, Clara, it's possible. It will be hard, but it is possible. And I will help you every step of the way. She looked at me, her eyes brimming with tears. And for a moment, I saw the little girl she once was, the child who used to climb into my bed after a nightmare, whispering, don't let go, Mama. But just as quickly, her expression shifted. Fear returned. She pulled her hand away and shook her head. No, I can't. He'll find me. He always finds me. I opened my mouth to protest, but she stood abruptly, lifting the stroller handle. I have to go. I shouldn't have come. Clara, I began, but she was already walking away. Her shoulders hunched, Luca running to keep up. I sat on the bench long after they were gone, my heart breaking all over again. But her question stayed with me. Do you think it's possible to start over? That wasn't just a question, it was a seed, a small, trembling spark of hope. And I knew then the day would come when she would be ready, when she would choose freedom. And when that day came, I would be there stronger than ever, ready to fight for her, for my grandchildren, for the love that no man could ever erase. The day I had been both dreading and waiting for finally came on a cold Friday evening in November. The streets were already dark, slick with rain, and the village square glowed faintly with Christmas lights strung between the lampposts. I had just returned from the market, carrying a bag of bread and cheese. When my phone rang, it was Clara. Her voice was frantic. Mama, please can you come, please? My heart stopped. What's happened? She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. He locked me out of the house. The children are inside. He said I'm not fit to be their mother. He said I should just disappear. My bag fell from my hands, bread spilling onto the wet stones. Where are you? I'm standing outside the house, she sobbed. Please, Mama, please hurry. I ran. My legs moved faster than they had in years, my breath burning in my chest. My little flat was 15 minutes away from her house on foot. But that night, driven by fear and fury, I made it in 10. When I turned the corner and saw her standing there, coat half buttoned, hair wet from rain, her hands trembling, felt my heart crack in two. Clara, I rushed to her, wrapping her in my arms. She clung to me like a drowning child, her body shaking. He has the children inside, she gasped. He won't let me in. I looked at the door, its heavy wooden frame shut tight, the lights glowing faintly through the curtains. Something inside me snapped. I marched up the steps and pounded on the door with my fist. Marco, open this door. For a moment, there was silence. Then the door creaked open, just a little, and Marco's face appeared in the gap. He smiled coldly when he saw me. Well, look who decided to visit. Didn't I make myself clear? You're not welcome here. I pushed against the door, forcing it open wider. Where are the children? They're fine, he said casually, leaning against the frame. Sleeping upstairs. Unlike their mother, I know how to take care of them. Clara stepped forward, her voice trembling. Marco, please, let me in. They need me. He turned his gaze on her, and the softness vanished. His eyes hardened, his jaw clenched. You're a wreck. You can't even hold yourself together. You're lucky I haven't called social services yet. The venom in his voice made my stomach twist. I stepped in front of Clara, my own voice rising. Enough. You don't get to talk to her like that. She is their mother. You may be their father, but she is the one who has held this family together despite your cruelty. His lips curled in a sneer. Oh, listen to the old woman pretending she has a say. You've poisoned her with your weakness, your constant meddling. She's pathetic because of you. I could feel Clara trembling behind me, but something inside me, something that had been growing for months, flared into steel. No, I said firmly. She's not pathetic, she's brave. She's surviving you. His eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I thought he might strike me. But then, slowly, he leaned back and folded his arms. You think you're strong, don't you? You think you can protect her? Yes, I said, my voice steady. I can, and I will. Clara let out a soft sob, pressing her hand against her mouth. I reached back and took her hand in mine, squeezing it tightly. Marco's smirk faltered, just slightly, and that tiny shift gave me strength. I lowered my voice, speaking with calm certainty. If you don't like Clara inside right now, I'll call the police. And this time, Marco, I won't stay silent. I'll tell them everything I've seen, the bruises, the threats, the way you isolate her. Do you really think you can charm your way out of that? His nostrils flared. For a long, tense moment, none of us moved. The only sound was the rain dripping from the roof and Clara's shaky breathing. Then, with a sudden burst of anger, Marco slammed the door shut. Clara let out a cry. The children. I wrapped my arms around her, holding her tightly as she sobbed. She will get them. I promise you, Clara, we'll get them back. And in that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. I was done waiting, done tiptoeing around Marco's rage, done watching my daughter wither under his control. If he thought he could erase me, he was wrong. I would fight for Clara, for my grandchildren, for the family he tried to steal from me, and I would not stop until we were free. I remember the morning it finally happened. The air was sharp with winter, the kind that makes each breath sting, and frost painted the windows of my little house. I had woken early, not because I couldn't sleep, but because something inside me felt unsettled, as though the day was carrying a weight I couldn't yet name. I was sipping tea at the kitchen table when I heard Ida knock at the door. Not just any knock, but a frantic, desperate pounding that shook the wood. My heart leaped into my throat. I rushed to the hallway, pulled the door open, and there she was. Clara. Her hair was damp from the cold mist, her eyes wide, swollen from crying. She clutched the children close, one on each side, their small coats half-zipped as though she had left in a hurry. Behind her, the sky was barely breaking into dawn. Mama, she whispered, her voice trembling. I couldn't stay. Another night, I didn't ask questions. I didn't need to. My arms opened, and she collapsed into them. The children pressing against me, all of us tangled together in an embrace that felt both fragile and unbreakable. Tears soaked into my shoulder, hers and mine mixed, but none of us let go. Welcome home, I whispered through my own sobs. You're safe now. For a long time, we simply stood in the doorway. I felt her shaking, her whole body unraveling after years of holding everything in. The children clung to me, silent but searching for reassurance in my touch. Finally, I led them inside, sat them at the kitchen table, wrapped them in blankets, and poured warm milk into mugs with trembling hands. Only when they were settled did Clara speak again. Her voice cracked as she recounted the night before. Marco had lost his temper over something smaller, misplaced document, an argument about money. The shouting had been louder than usual, sharper, crueler, and when the children began to cry, Clara realized something inside her had broken. She couldn't bear to let them grow up in that shadow, in that prison of fear. I thought of you, she whispered, her hands twisting in her lap. I thought of how you stood at that door and begged to see me, how you never gave up, even when I pushed you away, and I knew I couldn't let him lock me away forever. Not me, not the children. Her words tore me apart. For years, I had felt helpless, shut out, told I wasn't wanted. But now, hearing her say she had drawn strength from me, even from my broken pleas at the doorstep, I realized that my love had never been wasted. It had waited quietly, burning like a small flame, until she was ready to see it again. The following days were not easy. Marco called relentlessly at first, leaving angry voicemails, then tearful ones, then silence. Clara's phone buzzed on the table unanswered. Each ring was like a shadow creeping in, but slowly, she began to ignore them. One morning, she switched the phone off completely and slid it into a drawer. There were moments when she wavered, when guilt and fear pressed down on her. What if I've ruined everything? What if he comes for us? She whispered at night. I held her hand and reminded her, you didn't ruin anything. You saved everything that mattered. We went to the authorities together. I sat beside her as she told her story, her voice shaking but steadying with each word. The officers listened, took notes, reassured her. It wasn't easy, but it was a step one she had never been able to take before. Through it all, the children began to laugh again. At first, their laughter was small, hesitant, like something fragile that might break if touched. But soon, they ran through my hallway with joy, chasing each other, their voices filling every corner of the house with light. I hadn't realized how much I had missed that soundly simple music of innocence. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in gold, Claire and I sat together on the porch. She leaned her head against my shoulder, her eyes tired but softer than I had seen in years. I thought I had lost you, she said quietly. You never did, I answered. You were just out of reach. But love doesn't vanish. Claire, it waits as long as it has to. She cried again, but these tears were different, cleansing, releasing. And in that moment, I realized the truth I had been searching for all this time. Marco had tried to erase me from my daughter's life. He had slammed doors, turned keys, spoken words meant to wound. But real love cannot be locked out. It lingers in the spaces between silence, in the memory of shared laughter, in the heartbeat of a mother waiting at the doorstep in the rain. Yes, I had been told I wasn't welcome. Yes, I had been shut out. But now, Clara was here. My grandchildren were here, and no man, no cruelty, no shadow of fear could take that away from us. I held her hand tighter, whispering the words I wished I had said long ago. You are free now, and home is wherever love is. Don't ever forget that. And as the night settled gently around us, I knew finally that we had all walked through the storm. Broken, yes, but still standing. And together, we had found the light again.